Nothing is ever really wasted unless you don't learn something from it, especially negative situations. Love is a decision, not a feeling, and soulmates are essentially people who choose to stay, not some idea of a person made for you by God. The idea of loving someone should not come from a place of feelings, but rather a decision to be with them. It's a commitment. And a commitment is like signing a contract, knowing fully well that there will be repercussions if that contract or its terms are breached. Adulthood is a scam when you refuse to take responsibility. Hey, it's been a minute. What has happened so far? Well, a lot. And when I was thinking about this video, I had this phrase in my mind that I was going to start with. 30,000 views. That is the amount of views I have had on my video about feeling like you've wasted your life at 30. And I was going to tell you about how much I was so proud of that video because it wasn't a reaction video, it wasn't a trendy video, it was just me telling the story of how I felt and trying to share the little things that I've understood for someone who may feel that way. That video is still one of my favorite videos on my channel. And it's not just because of the 30,000 views. It's mostly because whenever I watch that video, I see myself and the effort that I put in trying to actually get to my point, which is something that I have a hard time doing generally, or at least used to. Now I actually get better over time. But when I think about that video, my heart goes the most to the comments and the people who watched the video, left comments expressing how much they felt the same way that I expressed in the video and how much they wished things could be different. And as I kept reading those comments and going through them, and it's been 2 years since I've been going through those comments and people still respond. And actually, if you search I wasted my life, that video pops up amongst the top 5, which is crazy because as a content creator, you're supposed to be excited when your video ranks really high. But then as a human being who is trying to improve his life, I wonder if the fact that people are searching for that subject doesn't represent that there are more people who have a really hard time feeling like they're making any progress in their lives. And so I thought of starting with that video and leading into this one, which is things I learned in my 30s that I wish I'd known sooner. And I couldn't distill this list to a number because I realized there were so many things, but the list I'm about to share with you actually resonates with me strongly now. And I think if you watched that video about wasting your life at 30, this is the video that I hope will give you a reason to realize that it's not all lost. And I'm saying this because last month was my birthday. I turned 32 and it's been really fun. And I don't mean fun like in a happy-go-lucky way, because so far now, the older I get, the more I realize that life isn't just about happiness, and happiness isn't just about the positive feelings. Happiness is, finding meaning in suffering. If you've listened to me enough, you hear me talk about that quote from Man Search for Meaning about how life is suffering and happiness is finding meaning in suffering. There's a lot of suffering in my life right now, things I did not expect. The biggest example, for example, was my divorce. That was not very fun. That was suffering. And as I go through this list, I'm going to share examples of moments and things that now seem to make sense, but previously didn't. So these are things I wish I knew before I turned 30, but things that I realize you can use them at any age actually. So let's get started. Nothing is ever really wasted unless you don't learn something from it, especially negative situations. This I have noticed, especially as I try to build a life that represents what I think I have in my mind, the kind of world that I want to live in, the kind of life that I would like. I find that, and it's getting more and more real every day, that insofar as I can learn from something, even if it's something that is unpleasant, insofar as I can find a way to pick a lesson out of whatever the situation is, nothing is ever really wasted. And the reason why I used to feel like my 30s were wasted was because I couldn't see how everything that I had done led me to this particular point in time. And it's often easy to say that when things work out, let me say you're late for a job opportunity and you don't get a job and you have to go back home and struggle. And then eventually somehow, because you had that struggle, because you were in the right place at the right time, you met the right person, and 5 years down the road, you get a business deal that changes your whole life. But in the moment when you were getting that job rejection, it wasn't fun. It wasn't nice. You weren't thinking about, in the future it's going to happen. And it's the whole Steve Jobs thing, right? You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And this is something based on where my 30s right now. Like, it's like 2010, I was 20. And I hadn't figured out a lot of things about what I wanted to do. I went through a lot of suffering trying to convince my parents in 2012 that I wanted to restart college for the second time. And at the time, I feel now that if I had known that things were going to work out somehow, I may not have felt as bad, because I'm sure there's still trauma there that I need to deal with. Like the way I deal with rejection, the way I deal with disappointing people who care about me, there's still something there that I need to work on. But once you understand, and it's something I'm understanding now a lot more, that the moment you can find a way to learn from anything, things get really fun. Things get really interesting. And it makes everything else like a blessing. So you lose a friend and you're sorry and you're feeling bad that you did something wrong. And eventually you realize that this person had to leave your life so you could have room for someone or something else. Number 2, love is a decision, not a feeling. And soulmates are essentially people who choose to stay, not some idea of a person made for you by God. Now, this one is directly linked to my divorce, because a lot of what I've understood about relationships and male-female dynamics in romantic situations boils down to my conclusions around the end of my marriage and the way things worked out or the way things didn't work out, and how someone who had stood in front of the public and made a vow to love and protect and cherish and all that good stuff eventually turned out to be not what I thought it was going to be. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that a lot of people rely on the feeling of pleasure, the feeling of attraction that you get from a partner, the way they look or the way they sound when things are good. And when things get sour and you meet a couple of challenges, then you know whether you actually love someone. And now I know that love is not that feeling. It's not those tingles. Those tingles can be present throughout the relationship. Don't get me wrong. There are people who are old and wrinkly and still feel very attracted to each other. But what I know now in my 30s that I wish I'd known in my 20s is that when you choose to love someone, you're making a decision that should not be based on how you feel. The same way you shouldn't make bad decisions when you're angry, or you shouldn't make spending decisions when you're happy. The idea of loving someone should not come from a place of feelings, but rather a decision to be with them. It's a commitment. And a commitment is like signing a contract, knowing fully well that there will be repercussions if that contract or its terms are breached. And the way I look at love right now and the way I choose to love is making the decision that no matter what happens, I am going to do my best in my capacity as a human being, knowing myself fully well to the best of my abilities, to show this person that I'm choosing to be with that they are worth more to me than they think, and that they are worth me growing and changing and improving myself, not becoming someone else. Because when you choose to love someone, there's always going to be the clash, because people are different. People are already different. And so you find somebody who already has a different attitude, a different mentality, a different background. It takes a lot to communicate when you've grown up in different environments, you have different value systems, different goals, different dreams, different hobbies, and you have to come together to try to build something. It takes commitment, not feelings. It takes a decision to stick around, especially when things aren't working out, And I think most people in their 20s who get married either make the decision too early and don't realize what it takes, or people even who get up in their 40s and still end up divorced or remarry don't learn enough. You go back to step one, learn enough about what it is that happened to become better, to become self-aware, to do the work, the inner work, to improve yourself, to become the kind of person who is worthy of that commitment and also willing to give that commitment, and also smart enough to choose the kind of person who deserves that commitment. So remember, love is a decision. Number 3, this one is my favorite. Adulthood is a scam when you refuse to take responsibility. There's the meme about adulthood being a scam that I think many people, including people that I care a lot about and people that I've just met who don't know me but who I actually care a lot about, say. And I don't think it's cringe the way people use the word cringe these days. I just think when people say that, and for me, my lesson is I would rather be in a position where I can work and pay for the things that I like and buy my toys, get my gear, than to have to wait for someone to make that decision for me. So when I think of adulthood, I think of the possibility of being able to choose a life path based on your abilities and your decisions. And I think when people say adulthood is a scam, it's because they put a list of the things that they did not want to do, things that they don't want to do, things that they won't want to be responsible for, and say it's a scam. I think adulthood is only a scam when you refuse to take responsibility. Now, things may happen. You may be in a country like Cameroon, where I was born and raised, where things may not work out in your favor. But my firm belief is that if someone who looks like you and has circumstances like you has been able to make it, and by make it I mean achieve a level of success in life based on the kind of terms that you consider success, if somebody can do that, then you can too. And if you want to give me reasons why you can't, then that's fine. It means you don't want it. And we shouldn't confuse people refusing to choose their lives with life being so difficult that they can't choose. There are people who've had worse situations than you and I who've been able to make it. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have empathy for people who are really struggling with mental health illnesses and difficult situations. But I think the majority of people, maybe not the majority, but there are some people who are just plain lazy. And I've been one of them. I think I spent a lot of my 20s being lazy. And the result of that is me not achieving a lot of the potential that I have, not getting my goals done, procrastinating and giving up. In fact, this video we're watching right now, I shot this video this is 12:31. I was supposed to have shot this video at 9 o'clock. And that was before I finished work at 5. And I didn't. And I pushed it around. I made a phone call, talked to someone really cool, which I wouldn't have done before. And when the moment came for me to make the video, I thought, well, I don't really have to make the video. But then I realized if I don't take this step to make a video for my YouTube channel, which I'm hoping to be able to build into something more, then I'm failing myself. I have to take responsibility for my life. As an adult, as a 20-year-old, as a 25-year-old, 30-year-old, yes, you may have time, but you also have the possibility and the body and the youth and the mind to do something about your dreams. And if you don't do them, you can't blame the government all the time or your parents. At some point, you will realize you are responsible and you have the power to make something different about things. Number 4, friendships are mostly one-sided. This has been and continues to be a difficult pill for me to swallow, because there are people in my life that I consider friends, and the more we interact or the more we don't interact, I realize that I hold them to a different standard to which they hold me, or I think of them and I care about them in a way that they would never care about me. And it's been difficult for me to accept that. That is no fault of theirs. It's just because you can't care about people equally. I mean, even parents who tell you they love their children equally probably deep down know that they have some children that they prefer more than others. Maybe the children remind them of themselves. Maybe the children are just more likable, more cooperative, and you just like the people that you like. And so one of the things that I'm learning now that I wish I'd known a long time ago is the fact that friendships are not linear. There are people who come into your life and give and then leave. There are people who come into your life and take and then leave. There are people that you try to keep in your life and there is just nothing you can do to keep in touch. You try to call, make video calls, schedule time, and it just doesn't work out. And as soon as I'm saying this, I'm still thinking of people that I wish we had a better relationship. I wish things could be different. I wish we could talk more. I wish we could have a deeper relationship. But I have to come to terms with the fact that it's probably not going to happen. And on the flip side, there are people who I never thought I'll build a good or great friendship with, that over time things are getting better and better. And I'm realizing that I'm actually getting more out of this relationship than they are. And the more I try to help, the less they want to help. Friendships are mostly one-sided. And I don't know if I agree with if I'm okay with that. It's just what it is. You can't have an equal partnership. Someone will give more than the other. Maybe the roles will be flipped, Someone may provide more financial assistance, another person will provide more emotional assistance. I think even in relationships, it can't be that equal. There is someone who will do more than the other in certain areas, and you just have to accept and also be willing, like in the third part, to be responsible and be a good friend or a good partner. So, yeah, I wish I'd known this a long time ago. Number 5, your parents are human, which means you can still love them and be annoyed by them. Doesn't make you a bad person or a bad child. This one is probably going to trigger people because this is difficult to accept, especially for African parents and African children. And I think everybody gets to this age at some point where you realize your dad is not the strongest person on earth, or your mom is not the most beautiful one alive, relatively. And it's difficult. I think probably part of the psychology development of a child where you have to break that cycle. But then you get to a point and you start seeing your parents act and do and say things that if they were like friends, you would actually tell them, bro, that's just stupid. Why did you do that? But they're your parents. They're people who gave birth to you and took care of you and nurtured you to the adulthood. They pay your school fees. They put a shelter over your head, gave you words of advice. They were worried when you were sick. They prayed for you. Like, these are not just random strangers on the internet or people that you don't know. For people who have parents and people who don't have parents, it's a very difficult subject to broach, parenting. And I think for those of us who've been lucky to have both parents equally available in their lives, you get to a point where you realize that these people are just people. And holding them to that impossible standard of being able to see things and have all the answers, it's crazy. I think I remember watching a Jordan Peterson video where he was talking about the fact that a man is not really a man until his father is dead. And the idea was that you can always go back to your tyrant parent because there's a security of answers. They know more than you do, so things can always work out. And that the child or the son becomes a man only when he realizes that his father doesn't have all the answers. And it's painful because that security and that safety and that certainty is gone. And you have to deal with that. And it's something that I think happened to me in my later 20s, getting into my 30s, realizing that my parents are not all that cut out to be, and realizing that they're just like me. Like, they're worried, they're afraid, they have weaknesses, they have hopes, they have aspirations, they have temptations, they have dreams, they have ideals, values that may or may not be similar to what I have. And I can interact with them now, at least try to, and meet them where they are and talk to them like people, not like gods and goddesses. And I think it's something we need to learn about, like being able to allow them to be human and allow ourselves to be angry at them. And it doesn't mean that we don't love them. It's like, yeah, you can respect your father and still respectfully tell him that what he just said was BS. I don't know which way to do that, but I think it's possible. And I think we have to be able to learn that they're human, and you can actually start enjoying the relationship, interacting with them, asking them questions about their hobbies, talking with them about what they like, what they don't like, and actually discover who the people who gave birth to us were. And for people who don't have their parents, this is probably going to be difficult because I'm sure that they either already had that relationship with their parents or they miss it. And that's tough because in the end, it's like, what do you do when someone you care about goes away? What do you do when you can't reach out to them anymore? And that's why I sometimes make these videos, because I have to remind myself that I'm not as smart as I think that I am. And if I keep thinking that I know everything, then one day I will look back and all the people that I cared about and I really wanted to be with, they're gone. So yeah, the parents are human. Forgive them. Forgive them as best as you can and try to work out things with them. And if they are gone, keep their memory alive. Number 6. This one is a little bit light-hearted. It's from a version of this version of it is from Atomic Habits by James Clear. So it says, you fall to the level of your system and rise to the level of your standards. You notice this the most during the darkest times of your life or when your values are tested. So this is like a 2-pointer in one, which is number 6 of the things that I wish I learned in my 20s, is that when things go really bad in your life and you lose control, you will fall to the level of the systems you put in place when things were fine. For example, if you relax in the club or your relaxation level is watching Netflix or watching the news, then when things go sour, you're much more likely to then engage in that activity for longer, because that is when you had a stable system, you place that as your systematic level of your threshold of enjoyment of life, which was just sitting there and watching TV or drinking alcohol or engaging in whatever it is that you engage in that is not particularly helpful for you. So I noticed this specifically because when I went through my divorce and everything was chaotic and I had a very hard time, I realized I started reading more. Like, I wouldn't want to eat or sleep or shower. I just wanted to read. And I thought it was just me getting crazy. I thought I was going to become a mad scientist or something. But then when I started getting better, I realized that reading is what relaxes me. Reading helps me out for one very funny reason. I usually get answers to the questions that I have. I noticed that personal development actually does work when you put in the work. When you're lost and confused and you don't know what to do and you feel like your life is a waste, opening a book can be the best thing that you can do. Because the thing about books is they don't care about your feelings. The words are there. You choose to read them. You choose to interpret them how you want to interpret them. Nobody forces you to read them unless you're in school. But in my case, the system I built was reading, and that reading gave me hope, gave me motivation. It's like mentors were talking to me through their words, from David Goggins to Jocko Willink to Jordan Peterson. Like, I was in my room, in my home, dark by myself, but getting these words on paper coming across to me got me back to where I am today. Among other things, of course, like the support I got from my family and just plain sheer will to survive. And when you know this, when you have this understanding, it means that when things are fine, build systems that you can rely on when things aren't fine, because life is a cycle. Things go up, they go down. Sometimes things are great, sometimes they're not. And you have to be able to go up. And when you fall on the system that you build. So basically what you're doing is your present self prepares for your future self. So when things get bad and sour, for example, think of people who, when they're stressed out, they go to the gym. Like, that is probably one of the coolest systems you can get. Is, you feel stressed, you go and work out. That is a great system. And usually you can build systems when you're feeling good. And the second part is when your values are tested. When somebody says something that hurts your feelings. When, for example, in my case, when I'm in a group conversation and I do terribly in group conversation, somebody says something that hurts my feelings or challenges my thought, and I have to remember about the context of the conversation. This is text. You will be misunderstood. You will misunderstand. You don't know what's going on in anybody's life. You have no idea what they're dealing with. Don't say things that would hurt people. And I don't listen to myself all the time. And that is why I have to build my value system, because when I drop to that level, I need to rise to my level of my standards, which is to not engage in confrontational situations unless necessary. And finally, number 7, a wasted life can become suddenly meaningful overnight. Basically, if you keep trying, at some point it would all make sense. But you have to keep trying. You have to keep going through the storm. When I watched this video, there was a comment that stood out for me, and it made perfect sense to represent this point of 7. And the comment is this: 30 years ago, when I watched this man in the ring, I would never have thought I'll be taking relationship advice from him today. He's so right. And so lesson number 7 is about the fact that, and goes back to that video, wasted my life, is you can waste every single day of your life trying very hard, doing your best. And overnight, you can look back and see all the things that you put effort in and now meaningful. I don't think Mike Tyson wasted his life. He's an amazing boxer. And now he's become this person that people actually look up to. If you look to where he was and look at him now, there is no way anybody would have predicted Mike Tyson becoming the kind of person who says these kinds of things. And I think that's the coolness of being in a place in your life where things are so difficult that it doesn't look like there's any hope. And the reason why I keep making these videos and why I keep doubling down on TikTok and creating content is because I have been in dark places in my head where I really thought things were hopeless. Maybe not as far as some people, but I think it starts with that slippery slope of when you look at your life and you can't see anything that is worthwhile. And when I read the comments on the video that I posted 2 years ago, and I see people share their stories of being at a certain age and wondering how they got here and thinking that there's nothing to do and nothing to gain from there, it hurts me. It hurts me a lot because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to cheer you up from a place where you feel like there is really nothing possible to do. And so when I show up here to make these videos and share these lessons about the things that I wish I learned, is because I want and I hope that in some way something I say would help you realize that the fact that you are alive and that you've survived the difficulties that you've survived and that you're struggling to get back and you actually have this thought that you feel like you've wasted your life means that you have it in you to do something about it. You have it in you to ask for help. You have it in you to move out of that room, to move out of that town, to stand up for yourself, to start small, to go to the gym, to pick up a book, to start a business, to go back to school, to finish school, to ask the girl out. You have it in you to start making videos on the internet to talk about your journey. You have it in you to start writing and keeping a blog and tracking your progress. You have it in you to start meditating, to calm yourself down and become a better person, a more calm person who can make better decisions. I really think and believe that we all have it in us to be able to transform our lives and become the kind of person that people say, like they said to Mike Tyson, I didn't think that 30 years ago I'll be taking relationship advice from this man when I saw him in the ring. So what ring are you fighting in right now? Where are you throwing your punches? Yourself, your parents, the people around you, the government, the system. You're punching everybody, fighting, including your true self, which is a self of making and creating. And if you're like me, every day you wake up, you feel like you're not yet close enough, and you can not even feel the success getting close. And trust me, it doesn't go away easily. I'm still afraid that I will never accomplish my potential. Even as I make these videos and I put this work and I show up every day, part of me still tells me, Kamga, you cannot do this. You're still going to procrastinate, you're going to be lazy. And then you have people in your lives who actually represent those voices in your head, people who you can sense and feel that they don't want your success. They don't want you to be happy. They don't want you to succeed in things that you're doing. I want to tell you today that the same way you have people who are not cheering for you, who don't want you to succeed, there are people who are cheering for you. I have felt and seen friends, strangers, people I haven't met who've given me the coolest compliments about my work on the internet. People who've told me to keep going. People who've had the time to call and just share with me that they like what I did and I should keep going. I've been able to meet mentors. I've been able to have people drive miles to come and give me stuff because they watch my videos. Shout out to you, Cody Warner, if you're watching this. And there is good in the world. There really is. It doesn't mean you walk around hugging everybody and trusting everything, but there is good in the world. And no matter how bad things are right now, it can get better. It really can. So I may not have learned all these lessons in my 20s, but I'm in my 30s now. And the way I see it, every day is for learning. And who knows what I'll learn next? Maybe I'll learn how to be a better human being. Maybe I'll learn how to actually do the things that I want to do. Or maybe you will teach me something that I can learn from too. Take care, my friend.